So I'll just kind of jump on in here. I'm back. Okay, so thank you, Undersecretary Schubert and panelists. Tim, in my line of work as a surfer, I'd call you a shredder. Rad. Tell it like it is. I love that. So today, the economy and jobs is still on the top of concern for most people. Besides California's regulatory climate, water supply plays a key role in business sustainability. Our next session, Moneyraker, highlights a number of industries that rely on water reliability, and how jeopardizing water supply directly risks the bottom line and economy. Joining me on the panel this morning is Bruce Karras from the Coca-Cola Company and Dan Boyd of D.R. Horton Homes, and 2013-14 President of the Building Industry Association of Southern California. So Bruce is the Vice President of Environment and Sustainability for Coca-Cola Refreshments. In his role, he leads the environmental sustainability strategy, development, and implementation for Coca-Cola in North America. It's a big gig. He has more than 20 years of experience as an environmental, health, and safety professional and has practice in a wide range of industrial operations in the U.S., Canada, and China. He is a certified industrial hygienist in comprehensive practice, a certified safety professional, and a registered occupational hygienist in Canada. Daniel W. Boyd, is a Vice President of Entitlements for D.R. Horton's Orange County Inland Empire Division. Dan joined D.R. Horton more than 15 years ago and is responsible for obtaining the major land use entitlements for the division and serves as a primary governmental liaison between the division and the many local, regional, and state agencies in which the district or the division operates. In his present position, Dan is responsible for developing and implementing strategic strategies to ensure the division's success in seeking project entitlement approvals and ensuring positive government relations. So please welcome those guys to the stage. Pleasure to meet you.
Welcome. Dan Boyd, and it's a pleasure to be here today. Briefly, in my background, I've been in the development industry for the past 35 years, 16 serving for D.R. Horton. D.R. Horton is the largest home builder in the United States of America and has been for the past 15 years. At its peak, we produced over 50,000 homes throughout the United States. More proudly, Mr. Horton, who continues to run his company, started his company with $700 in his pocket. Today, the company is worth billions. But that's not the important part. The important part is that I play a dual role for that company and another company called Building Industry Association of Southern California, which I'm also president. I represent over 1,000 home builders, developers, and vendors in the development industry in California. When my grandfather in the early 1900s, a contractor then, built 90% of downtown Los Angeles water and sewer, his best friend was William Mulholland. Mr. Mulholland, then of course, as we all know, a civil engineer, and my grandfather started out with zero. Many of the water and sewer pipes that still serve downtown Los Angeles have his name on it, Peter Gadd. And my grandfather told me when I was a young guy, he said, "Son, I'm going to tell you something. He who has the water controls the gold in California." He was right then, and you all in this room know he's right today. We at BIA cannot do our business. We cannot serve as one of California's leading economic generator. We cannot continue to produce over 700,000 jobs annually. When our industry falls, the California economy falls. Same as with agriculture. Probably the two most critical industries we have in California. We're seeing it right now in the drought. We're seeing it right now in the grocery stores. We're seeing how those families are paying upwards of 20% more for their groceries. So when we look at these two dynamic industries, we look at one common denominator: water. Not much of it. Our industry that consumes approximately 30% of the resources has been impacted in a positive way, oddly. Our home efficiencies and conservation measures in our homes today are no question some of the most highly technological homes ever produced, and we're just beginning. Our homes today consume less than 37%, and we're pushing for better numbers than that, less energy than homes 10 years ago. It's pretty incredible. Technology comes with expense. We as an industry don't like expense. We like to keep expenses low. But we quickly realized one important factor, that without water, there ain't gonna be any homes. When I deal and go up and down California every day, of which I am actually leaving for Sacramento here within the next hour or so, we have a little problem. We had to continue to be better, more technologically advanced producers of homes. And we had to take care of that valuable resource. When I started my career 35 years ago, and believe me, I can barely tell you what I did then, I worked for a very large land development company. Today, I personally have entitled over 145,000 homes and hundreds of thousands of acres in the western United States. And it always comes down to water. I was dispatched to Colorado a few years ago. I was told, Dan, we want to build 10,000 homes in this part of our state. Okay. I was on tribunal property. That's a whole different ballgame. I walked into the planning department, very short story, big sign above the department says, we don't do it like you do it in California, so don't ask. So I immediately turned around and left that line and dropped the clothes, got the Levi's, the boots, the cowboy hat, and came back and said, I need a new approach here. I went to the supervisor and I said, what do I need to do to subdivide this land and get things going? He said, really simple. There's only three things, really, two things in Colorado you have to establish. Property lines, which are your fence lines. I said, okay. He said, and that's a big thing. Oh, and number two, prove that you have water. Okay. That seems easy. Not in Colorado, because in Colorado, as in California, it's gold. We had to adjudicate water rights for those 10,000 homes. That was supposed to be a few-month project. 7 years later, we finally broke ground. I'm pleased to report, though, that today our industry is working ever so more closely with all of you experts in this room, all of the water departments in this room. We don't walk in doing this. We walk in doing this. We believe in infrastructure. Yes, our home building industry pays for most of the new infrastructure for these water districts. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And we should. We want to build homes. Well, we want to move families in. We want to create jobs. Home building industry is the economic engine of California. One home produces 85 jobs daily. 85 homes times 10,000 homes times 85 jobs. That's a lot of jobs. Sometimes water districts have certain impositions on our industry, and we frown. We frown at paying fees of $15,000 to $20,000 per unit. We don't like doing that, but we do. Because we have to cooperate. We have to build California infrastructure if we're going to continue in this great state to be one of the greatest states in the nation to live. Without water, it stops. Today, we've got a huge challenge. We have our drought. One of the biggest things that we can't stand is surprises in our industry. We're working daily with our water purveyors. We're asking them daily, don't surprise us. What do we need to do? How can we do it better? It's just not all about money. So we're working hand in hand in our industry with all the water districts in California. And it's really important because You know, just the other day, we had a water district down in one of the parts of San Diego. One of our project managers walked in. We invested over $31 million in this project. We built parks, we built high schools, we built the streets, the sewer lines, the water lines, the utility lines. A lot of money. Still haven't gotten one house out of the ground. Walked in and we got a little letter saying, guess what, we can't install meters. No water. What a surprise that was to Mr. Horton and to all of us. That wasn't a very pleasant meeting, by the way. We went in and basically we found out that the water district wasn't doing so well. And I won't bore you with the details, nor I'll name that water district. But they're going to be absorbed by a larger water district that has done more advanced planning. One of my favorite water districts, and I'm sure there's someone here, is Eastern Municipal Water District. You drive down this long road down the 215 out in the middle of nowhere, and here's this huge building. That's unbelievable. And the first thing you think is, God, there's our fees. There's our fees. No. I grew up with EMWD. One of my first jobs was Moreno Valley Ranch, one of the largest subdivisions in Southern California history back in the early 1980s. 4,000 homes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Bob Warmington put over $100 million in cash, most of that in water lines. And to this day, we built infrastructure in the 80s that's allowed what is now Western Riverside County to do what it's now doing. All from that early planning days. So I really applaud EMWD and other water districts that kind of force those issues because we had to plan for 20 years down the road, not just for tomorrow or the next day. So I'm very happy to say that the home building industry and the water industry are working hand in hand. And we continue to improve upon technology, our toilets, our water lines, our shower heads, all those things. But we've gone so far beyond that with our technology. The thing called LEED, green technology. California is really big on green technology. Unfortunately, California doesn't really know what it is yet. But we do. We know what's profitable, what makes sense, what technology doesn't make sense. So we hope to see in California over the next 10 years that water efficiency to go from 25, 30%, more like 40, 50, and 60%, because guess what? There is no snowpack. There is no snowpack. And we are going to face those ugly phone calls. Sorry, no meters this week. Sometimes they just can't do it. So one of the things that we really hope for is that we all work together and recognize that in order to grow California and make California continue to be one of the strongest states, we have to pay attention to these farmers. Agricultural is the next biggest economic driver in our state. If we can't put food on the table, why should we worry about putting a roof over their head? The two and two go together. Those two industries, unfortunately, Sacramento, in my humbled opinion, does not understand today. I am very supportive of our governor. I'm very supportive of both sides of the aisle. But if we don't wake up Sacramento and wake them up quickly and get them focused on what's important to the people of this state, we're not going to have homes, we're not going to have food on that table. And we don't get it squared away pretty quickly and make California the least expensive state to do business in. God love the state of Texas. God love those states that are taking our businesses away left and right. So part of our drill in our little humble life here in this room is that we are the ones that are purveying that economic engine. And I got to tell you, I don't think either of our industries have the attention that it deserves in Sacramento. But that's okay. It always says, home building industry is the first to fall in California and the first to rise. And you know what? We're very proud of that fact. Even though California is an expensive state, we get the highest taxation, We got some of the most beautiful things to be proud of here. But without the water, forget it. Game over. So our industry at BIASC, that I represent in California, we work very closely with Metropolitan Water District. We work very closely with the Cal Delta projects. We're very supportive of the bond measures. Absolutely. We need more. You know, it says that, and I always get this really, it makes me angry in my closing comments. Agricultural waste so much water. They're the 70% consumers. And I look back and I say, you know, you go tell that family of 6 that's got to put a gallon of milk each day on that table, or meat and vegetables on that table, and you tell them that they can't have the basic necessities on that table 3 times a day, or a roof over their head, then by golly, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Because I believe agricultural, home industry are partners. I believe the water folks in this room and statewide, we're partners. And if we don't continue to hold hands politically and philosophically, let's all go home. You know, I have an uncle who passed away. He's one of the largest ranchers in the valley, and he was a cotton rancher. And his son, my cousin, has to shut down the family farm, about 1,500, 2,000 acres. And he's not planting trees, he's not planting crops. I'm not a farmer, and I just take it for a look. I said, gosh, that's terrible, Pete. I'm sorry to hear about that, you know. I went up there and visited the family. It's absolutely devastating. It's just heartbreaking to see the heart and core of our homeland being destroyed. But we need to pay attention to conservation. We need to work harder. We need to work closer. So I am pleased that as we continue the next couple of years, that the most important thing in our industry is communication. We need to communicate daily. We need to work with our agencies daily, and we do that through the Building Industry Association. We meet weekly, monthly, and we ask the question, you got water for next week? Yeah, but we need these pipes and that. Okay, we got it. And you know, when I say we pay upwards of $15,000 to $20,000 per home just for water and sewer fees, I tell Mr. Horton that's okay. That's the investment in the future, because half of those fees is going to build future infrastructure that allows us to continue our business. In California today, Southern California, we pay approximately $40,000 per home in fees. In fees. Water, sewer, you name it. Cities, municipal fees. And you drive up and down and you see Newport Beach's new $20 million city hall. You go down and you see all these beautiful things the cities have. This is crap. We need to basically control our fees and make sure that those fees go to where they need to go, and that is in the infrastructure. Pay to play, but let's make sure that 50% of our allocation of our fees goes towards infrastructure. And if I were an elected official, that's what I would be running my campaign on. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Okay, well, thanks so much for the opportunity to share. What I'm going to talk about today is a little bit about our journey as Coca-Cola in the water space. My role is really in the area of environment and sustainability. I'm a technical person. It was great to listen to some of the conversation this morning. I think there's some themes you're going to hear me talk about that you heard earlier today. Certainly one of our big learnings as a company is the water issue for us is so important. It pervades all of our products. Either nature puts it into our products or we add it. We have to sanitize our process. So water is absolutely critical to what we do. And when you think in terms of sustainability, do we want to be around for the next 127 years? We have to think differently. And we've learned some things, and I'll share with you kind of how that journey has been. And like a business, we have to use data. So we've had to push ourselves into areas that we were probably not part of 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And we start to work with data that probably our business managers weren't thinking they would be using as a tool, and they use today. So let me walk you through a little bit about what we're doing in the space. So first of all, one of the things we learned about water, we're a global entity. Now, we operate locally in communities around the world. But what we learned is that with water, it's really about the social license to operate. There are various different regulations and ordinances, but really, we have to be using water in such a way that people in those communities give us the social license to operate. We need to be seen as a positive member of that community with this space. So we've really structured our program in that manner. Most companies will have sort of a framework to talk about sustainability. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but this is ours. It's about me, we, world. It's about the individual. It's about communities. And world is the area that I reside in and my team resides in. So we cover all of the environmental areas that are important to the company's types of operations, but most important is water. And we've had to invest in different types of talent than we never thought of years ago. So I have on my team a hydrogeologist that reports to me. Actually, there are two that we have that help us structure our programs and build our analysis. So water is key, but also when I look at communities, we realize that we share water with the communities where we operate. Our employees go home at the end of the workday and they're using water. We have to think about it in that terms of community. The other learning that we had is you really have to think about water not as a utility that's there when you turn on the spout and it comes out. You have to think in terms of whole watersheds. And that's really shaped our thinking very differently in the programs that we've put together. So what I'm going to walk you through is really what kinds of things we do. I want to give you some visuals of different projects that we're doing in watersheds. And I would tell you that it's a very different thing to have an operations person walk out with some boots on into a watershed to do some work to understand that this is where our water comes from. We have to value the ecology that's in that watershed. We have to help return it to at least help address impairments that exist today. So when I look at the whole water stewardship area, we call it stewardship because it's much more than just conservation at the plant level. So one of the things that we did have here with the Orange County Water Management District is we've actually, a number of us have visited the site. I too have drinking the water at the end of the tour out of the little paper cup. But we have had some great conversations with the team there to really understand, is that a technology that we could actually take back and apply in our own operations? So imagine, if you would, a beverage operation where we clean our pipes, clean our tanks. Could we do our process wastewater treatment, actually reclaim water, and have drops chase themselves through the system? So we've had a project we call Rainmaker that we've got actually two active projects, one in India, one in Mexico. We're working on one in Northern California to really apply some of the same type of thinking, to really look at how we can recycle water internally and really significantly improve our water efficiency. So when you think about it, think about the ways we all use water, even in our own homes. Much of the thinking is single pass use. You turn on the faucet, water is used once, it goes down the drain. And the frontier for us internally in water efficiency is how can we think of many different ways to reuse different water streams? And that's a little bit different engineering, so we do a lot of work in that space. When you talk about risk management, which is in the lower corner there, and I'm going to share with you, we've just completed water source vulnerability assessments at 900 facilities around the world. That's our company-owned and franchise-owned systems to really understand what is the local water situation, so we could have the appropriate data to really build off of. And then replenishment is what can we do in watersheds that's different? Because we value the communities, if the watershed is healthy, the community will be healthy, and our business will be healthy for the long term. So we're actually investing in things that are very far outside of the four walls of our operations. So I talked about data. This is just a shot of an analysis that we did. We have a number of different maps we put together. We brought in external hydrogeologists to really help us look. Every one of those dots represents a manufacturing plant somewhere in the world. And when you start to look at it that way, that gives our business leaders really a different perspective, that there is water stress around the world. We are located where people are. And often where people are, that's where you see varying types of stresses to water. So it really galvanized us into action, and these are the kinds of things that we talk about internally and share with our business leaders to really help construct our programs. Now, if you use the NOAA site to look at the drought monitor, This is a drought persistence map. It's been very interesting to see how we use this now in the context of working with our business leaders. So we can look at where droughts are. Do we need to do anything differently where we're operating? How would we adjust our operations? Let's really look at our source water protection plans that we have and make sure that we are starting to implement our drought management plans. So this has been a tool that I probably wouldn't have expected to be part of business in years past, and now it's becoming part of the fabric of how we do business. Now, this is just an example from one of our source vulnerability assessments. I use this, I just happened to be out at a conference in Hawaii talking about it, and that was tough duty, I might add. But really, it's a great opportunity for you to look at what your watershed looks like. What are the risks? What are the vulnerabilities? And as a business, it's really started to inform us. How do we need to connect with that watershed? How do we need to do something differently? And we learn a lot. We learn about things like infrastructure issues, I think were mentioned earlier. So if you have aging infrastructure, that could be a vulnerability for your water supply or your water quality. Think about just water quality. If it degrades, as a company that uses water that people consume in a product, we have to make sure that our treatment processes can really protect public health. So this has served to really give us a database that we never had before to operate from and a way to connect with local utilities. So what kinds of things do we learn if you're in the water space? These types of learnings, and this is sort of a generic across the U.S., the things that we've learned about infrastructure. I think that's been mentioned already. Depending on land use, it can affect water quality. With drought, there's obviously a water availability issue. Issues like public perception. What's the local regulatory policy? Are there any natural disasters that could affect the quality of water? Those are things that we want to know, but in turn that into some action later. So what are some of the things that we do? Well, this is kind of a program that we do with as we make different beverages, we use a drum that has it might be an orange juice concentrate, for example. We collect those now, clean them, and we work with local groups to really help raise the consciousness of the public about the importance of conserving water. So if you can capture some rainwater, use it in your garden versus using that municipal water that's been cleaned, that's something that really helps people understand the importance of water and what their role can be at the home. Bioswales or rain gardens. So one of the things that we've tried to do in local communities is really try to push putting these in to really teach about stormwater. What can we do with stormwater then instead of rushing down a culvert, flying out to a river and going out to the sea? Can we slow it down? Can we let it sink into the ground? So sometimes we put these in our plants so we can be a model for our local community. And then also we work with local communities to install these. So that's been a learning as we've gone through, and it's a way to deal with stormwater. So we're often located in urban areas, and that's a great tool. So I talked about projects. We call it replenishment. So we have a goal to essentially replenish the production volume of our company by 2020. And the way we're going to do it is by going into watersheds and working with partners to fix impairments. Now, as a beverage company, that goal comes down to me here in North America and my colleagues in other geographies. We're the ones that have to figure out, well, what do we do? Now, I have a couple hydrogeologists. Still, that's not a whole lot to do to solve an issue like that. So we work with partners. We work with partners like the U.S. Forest Service, World Wildlife Fund, the Nature Conservancy, very small local water conservancy groups. They help us understand what are some of the issues in that watershed and what can we do to help and what kind of projects can we do together. Additionally, one of the things that we always do, I always call it kicking the dirt. So if we do a project in a watershed, we get our employees, they might be running a computer all day in an office, get them out with a shovel to replant native species to secure a riverbank. That helps people understand the value of water, that's not, again, something that just comes through the spout. So this is a project here that we did in the Angeles National Forest, part of our partnership with the U.S. Forest Service. We just signed an MOU last September to really help connect with bigger projects and bigger scale, and they have some great resources for us to really understand things. So this is the headwaters of the LA River. So it's up in the area where the station fire was, and all that growth that you see around this pristine little river a lot of it are ornamentals that are brought up in the tires of cars as people visit, and they consume the water. So we've just had a work day. Our own employees work with the Forest Service teams and the National Forest Foundation, yanking up things that don't need to be there. So invasive species are a common issue. We did a great project up in the high Sierras. So we've learned the Forest Service really touches rivers in what you would call the headwaters areas. They're up in the mountains, up in these forests. there are these high mountain meadows that should be like in the lower right, this really green, wet area. When you walk on it at certain times of the years, it's squishy, it has wide pools. That's where water gets stored at 8, 10, 12,000 feet. So that in the summertime, flows are constant. So this was a project where the tributary of the McCulney River was incised. So on the upper left, you see that little gully. So the deeper that gets, your water table drops, so does your storage. So they had a technique they called plug and pond that we used. Fascinating. So we learned a technique that we never heard of. Working with the Forest Service, we've actually done some work to fix this impairment on a river, and it's important. So in the summertime, you have constant flows. This is another project that was, this is out in the watershed that Denver uses. And there was the Hayman Fire, I think it was back in 2001, devastated huge areas of the recharge area. And so the project we did with the Forest Service was really to slow down the erosion and sedimentation on Trail Creek, which feeds the South Platte River. And so on the lower right, that's some of the work that was done with the Forest Service, and we also had our own people, our own employees from the plants. We also partnered with Colorado State. Students went up to plant native grasses to secure and slow down some of this erosion. So we learned a lot there. Placer Creek is a feeder stream for the Rio Grande. This is, again, one of these high meadows, and in the lower right, this was actually becoming incised, and this was because it was used for mining. And what we're finding, where can Coca-Cola get involved? These are small projects that sometimes the Forest Service just doesn't have the arms and legs to get to. If we work with the National Forest Foundation and our own teams, we can together figure out a way to have small projects that fix some of these impairments and really help the watershed in general, and that's an investment in the future. We had a great panel here on agriculture, and we talked about drip irrigation and things like that. We've done several projects, and this is one in southwest Georgia. So if you've seen the pivot irrigators, we've done work with a combination of the Nature Conservancy and the USDA to really look at how can we use variable rate irrigation in some of these fields, such that as the irrigator rolls over an area that either isn't planted, it's rocky, it might be a little wetlands area, that actually shuts off those spouts, and you get a significant water savings. Could we do those things? And we learned a lot. We also looked at using soil moisture monitors in accompaniment with the same variable rate irrigator to see if that would help. So we learned about agriculture. For us as a company, most of our water use is upstream. For example, where we have sweeteners that we use, it might be corn, might be sugar cane, oranges. So we have to think about those applications as well when we think about watersheds and water. Another project we're doing here in the Southwest is on the Verde River, and this is really about just making sure we can partner with, this is Bonneville Environment Foundation, National Geographic, and this is really looking at how the irrigation system is put together. There's some old infrastructure. Could we help repair and improve those things? The Rio Grande is actually a key area for us as well. So the Rio Grande, we're doing a massive invasive species removal project with World Wildlife Fund. There's an invasive species called giant cane. It grows about 15 feet high. You couldn't even walk up the riverbank. But what it does is in the upper left, it actually captures sediment, and it really channelizes the river, and the water flows through faster, and it doesn't have the same wetting that it should have. So we're doing some work to remove the giant cane. We've done 30 miles through Big Bend National Park. Picture on the lower right is just how much sediment was captured by the giant cane, and we've already seen that it's sloughing off after we've treated it, so that's been positive. So there are a number of projects that we're doing here in California, and in the Southwest, we're looking to do some more. We're looking at some artificial aquifer recharge type projects, and we continue to seek new ways. So this is part of the journey for us. So our goal is really to replenish and balance our water footprint in local communities as we operate, and really make sure we do projects that are substantial, that have an impact, and really allow us all to be in a sustainable mode. So what I'd leave you with is what we've learned is that these types of projects, we call them golden triangle projects. If we can work with government, local organizations, and ourselves work together, we'll be successful. So in this sustainability space, there are things that are really important that I've seen in almost everything we do. And that's partnerships, that's innovation, and the last is passion. And what I've heard here today are a lot of people that have a passion about the water here, and it's really about getting people to work together and find what are the ways that we can solve problems together. So thanks so much for your kind attention.
So, I don't know if you know, but I am from a little company called Hurley just down the road. It's a surfing company. Anybody heard of it? Any surfers out there? There's a couple. Very good. Very good. Okay, cool. Well, hopefully we can go out sometime. That'd be good. So I'm going to take you through our strategy on how we look at water, both from a company standpoint and then a moment of like inspiration. And that's essentially what we really try to do. And being of a surfing brand, being of the consumers we connect with, we really, really try to keep it easy. So yeah, we're just down the road, surfing brand. We are an affiliate of Nike, so we plug into their operational excellence when we can as well. And a lot of learnings that we have from them, but then a lot of learnings that we provide them. Because since we're in the water space, what we try to do is we position it as we're sort of the spearhead of water advocacy and information for the entire portfolio of Nike. So I guess we can get to that next slide. Might still be having a little bit of a problem with that. So I'll just kind of go with it. How about that? So for us, I mentioned maybe a little bit before, we have to keep it really, really simple. There's a lot of very smart people in the room here, so I don't want to go through a lot of stats, but for our audience, we focus on the global statistic that 1 in 6 people at a global level do not have access to clean water. And that's really what we hone in on. And I'll talk about that in a second, but this slide here represents our brand positioning. Because surfers, we're in the water, we travel to different parts of the globe and we see the water. So basically, we like to say we are born from water. And that pretty much is our viewpoint into the entire operation and how I run the H2O program. Because if we're born water, well, then we should be for water, right? Okay, cool. So let's go down a path and try to educate people. Next slide, please. And I like to use very simple visuals. So 1 in 6 do not have access to clean water. Well, you can see the 6th one is obviously not clean, but many people like myself have traveled the globe, and not everywhere you go to pull water from a well, it's not always that dirty. We know there are parasites. We know there's bacteria that typically ends up harming children. So we try to use a visual like this to just say, hey, 1 in 6 do not have access, and this sort of summarizes why we don't want to drink dirty water, in my opinion. Next slide. And then we try to trigger that idea. If 1 in 6 do not have, well, 5 in 6 can help. And since we're a very small brand, a couple of hundred people doing some amazing things, we realize it's not just something that Hurley can tackle. What we're trying to do is trigger a movement. Try to inspire people to be part of the journey with us. Try to educate and inspire. So that's really what we're trying to do, is ignite this fire within each and every single one of us to make a difference and choose your own adventure.
My name is John Rose. I started Waves for Water because there's so many problems in the world that are seemingly unsolvable, but clean water is not one of them.
So our message is of empowerment, that you can make a difference. And how we've structured the program, to the next slide, is very, very, again, back to my thesis of being super simple. Choose your own adventure, right? The global water crisis basically takes on 2 very important camps: the conservation side of things and then the active side of giving water. So we broke it out into the idea of giving water and then saving water. And then we work with different nonprofits that were in that video, and I'll speak to in just a moment, to help us do that. Can we back up to that last slide real fast? So for the sustainability crowd, we've built this house under the idea of Hurley H2O, broken out by two different components of fighting the water crisis. But then at the bottom, you see that our foundation of a brand is focused on born from water, and that infiltrates the different ideas from our product, from our manufacturing base, from our facilities aspect. And I'll speak to some of those here in a little bit. Next slide, please. And for us, again, super simple messaging. Kind of comes down to something very, very easy right here. A reusable water bottle. For two things. One is it helps eliminate some of the plastic that's out there in the world, right? Some of the stats are obviously controversial and everything, but I've stumbled on a few that only 20% of bottles ever get recycled, and on my campus we pretty much say, dude, don't use them, right? So use a canteen. And so then that also becomes a symbol of actually you need to be responsible with your water. You need to carry it with you. You have to think about it. You guys are amazing at what you do. You're actually saving lives, right? I can turn on the faucet here and put some water in my canteen, and I know I'm not going to die, right? But not every place is like that. So it's a subtle messaging that we have on campus. We've banned single-use plastics, and we actually have banned those at many of our surf events. To the next slide. This is down at Trestles, which is a very world-famous break. Every year we have an event called the Hurley Pro, and I invite you all to come down, especially all you surfers in the crowd. Super fun time, very positive event, but it's not just about surf, it's also about education. So we work with our nonprofit partner. Next slide, please. Oh wait, let me back up on this. So we bring this is a 20-foot shipping container that we've repurposed, and we bring to different beach events. Next slide. And it opens up, and it's this full-on experience about water and how you can be involved. And what we really try to do is make it fun, because if it's not fun, people don't really want to be part of it. Certainly not the people that I work with. So we make it fun, engaging, simple, and in a way that hopefully inspires people to be part of that solution. These girls here are holding different pledge signs. One that says, I pledge to use a reusable bottle. I pledge to do more with less. I pledge to, there's one actually, flush smarter. So the kids like it, and they take their photo, and then they tag it to the Instagram and all that kind of fun stuff that the teenagers like these days, right? So we try to make it fun, engaging, and I also think the statistic I remember reading once is that if people pledge to do something, 15% of them will actually do it. So even though it's a little fun and a little goofy at times, there might be 15% of these kids that are actually going to think twice about flushing the toilet when they don't need to, or using it as a trash can or something, or finding out a way where they can get involved. So there's hope. Next slide. And now backing up to the nonprofit partners. This slide might be kind of hard to read, but at the different events, we use it as an educational moment, like I mentioned as well. And whether you agree with this stat or not, we try to vet that through our nonprofit partner called the Ecology Center, and they're in San Juan Capistrano, who's basically sums sustainability up, I think, the best that I've ever seen, and that is sustainability is giving more than you take. Kind of works. And it's this amazing facility down in San Juan Capistrano. Next slide, I think I might have a picture of it. Yeah, really beautiful. I think it might be the only organic farm in San Juan. I could be wrong. But we work with them to bring a lot of schools through that from a lot of outreach programming. Not only do they come to this facility and learn about a different lifestyle or learn about sustainability, but we also curate special water exhibits. There's this kind of horse-looking trailer thing there that's blue. That's actually called the Mobile Watershed. Kind of a play on words, right? But we bring this shed to different schools, open it up, and these kids pump water, and they understand their water footprinting and all that fun stuff. So they represent our educational partner, the idea of saving water, that conservation side, starting with young, making it fun, and who knows where they go from there. Next slide, please. One of the programs that we recently kicked off is a thing called Hydration Nation. Building off the momentum we have with schools, maybe we can connect to high schoolers that might be a little bit more cynical on things. And so we leverage our athletes. This guy is not me. That is not my hair. That's a world-famous surfer, Rob Machado, who we've actually designated to be a big sustainability advocate for our brand, and it totally endorses it and does some amazing work, including this program that we created called Hydration Nation. And the idea is, well, when you go to schools, people are bringing bottled water to school, and I suppose that's fine, but they're not using the drinking fountains to reuse different water bottles and stuff. So these drinking fountains have sort of this, what we call a janky effect, right? So they're kind of gnarly, they're a little disgusting sometimes they don't work, so kids don't even use them anymore. So we thought, well, maybe we can create a program where we can encourage people to drink tap water, and all of which you all provide in amazing ways. And so we install water bottle filling stations. We remove that drinking fountain, put in a filling station, and then we inspire kids to create an H2O club where they're learning about water, the global effects, etc. And then we give them reusable bottles to sell, and the money they raise goes to buy portable water filtration systems, of which I'll tell you about in a minute. So let's roll this video.
I started the club after working at the U.S. Open with Ben, and really enjoyed it, and tried to get something similar going at the school, and wanted to do something for a good cause. Just today we got our first water fountain put in, and we're going to be selling the reusable H2O bottles, and point of that is to eliminate plastics and have those to reuse. The money that we raise from selling the water bottles, we are going to donate to Waves for Water, and we're going to provide water filtration systems to Brazil. We are actually going to go sell the bottles right now at our booth, the H2O booth, and have them sign a few things and hopefully sell a lot of bottles.
So it's kind of a fun program we created, and we really, again, trying to inspire and empower youth to make a difference, and give them the tools. We basically fund some of the program, and they just kind of run with it, and we're on the phones with them every other day, making sure they're doing the right thing. And we've been to, 7 different schools in the area, with another 5 to roll out each year. Then we pivot to the idea of giving water. And the gentleman on the, left in the green is a guy named John Rose, and he's a former professional surfer. He, at the twilight of his career, wanted to continue surfing, right? How can I go to different places and continue surfing even though I'm not going to get paid? What can I do? Maybe I can figure something out. So as a pilot project, he brought some portable water filtration units with him to Indonesia on a surf trip, one of the best surf destinations in the world. And you guys remember what happened a couple years ago in Indonesia? Well, there was a huge earthquake and tsunami. And instead of being like what most people might do and hop the first flight out, he actually went into harm's way and connected with the Red Cross and some local leaders and said, hey, I have these. Do you think these might help? And instantly changed lives in many different individuals, because what they did is they lined up the pregnant women that needed access to clean water. Then they lined up the people that had wounds, that if you're cleaning, or if you're trying to clean a wound and it has dirty water, as you know, it's going to get infected and really have some bad things happen. So that was a light bulb moment for John, and he came back and he started talking to his fellow surfers, including us at Hurley, and said, hey, is this something you guys might want to be interested? Because you're starting this H2O thing. We said, absolutely, instantly, we're on board. And so we've partnered with John for the last couple years, and the idea is so brilliant, if you ask me. When you look at nonprofit work, sometimes it can be really hard, but his is very, very simple. And the idea is have fun and then just help along the way. And that's one of our messages we really try to evangelize to people, because surfers are traveling all over the world, chasing wonderful waves, connecting with different cultures and whatnot. And a lot of times we're bringing pens and pencils and things.
Bond. James Bond.
I think I just cut off myself. Is that right? If I'm the Bond guy. Anyway, the idea is bringing water filtration units with you and encouraging people to do so. So let's go to the next slide. I want to share something that we just recently did. A couple of weeks ago was World Water Day. I would imagine you guys all know this day, right? Okay, good, World Water Day, yep. So what we did, instead of just trying to have the idea of awareness, we wanted to have action, because that's really what our brand is about, trying to have action. So we created this thing called 100K World Water Day. We've done local activations, but we want to do something really big. And the idea is on one day, we have one goal, and we want to install enough filtration units to provide access to clean water for 100,000 people on one day. And so what we did is we created different teams. Next slide. And we sent them to 5 different parts of the globe. So to Haiti, Indonesia, I led one in Nicaragua, what were the other ones? Brazil, and Liberia. And we worked with our surfing network, the guys that are actually going places, our actual surfers, professional surfers, leading these trips, bringing these filtration units simultaneously timed on one day to deliver these filters, because each filter has the capacity to help 100 people, right? So if you do the math, you can kind of break it down. Simple idea of surfers helping people, and hopefully that inspires people as well. And we triggered this on an Instagram campaign. And I think my time is short, so I'll see if we get what the next slide is. But yeah, we created product to help support it. No product, no story, as far as we're concerned, from a company that makes stuff. And I could talk about sustainability. All of our products are using recycled bottles and stuff for our board shorts, but I'll cut that short. Anyway, 100K World Water Day, rallied the troops, asked all of our surfers, connected with everyone that we could, and really went after it. And we didn't know what would happen. But I'll show this next video, and I think it sort of summarizes it.
Waves for Water is founded on adventure, it's founded on surfing, it's founded on going out there and doing the things that you love and helping along the way. And nobody ever said that you can't have fun while you're helping people. On March 22nd, we completed our World Water Day project. We brought a lot of the advocates that have supported us over the years, and with a little bit of coordination, you go out there and now all of these people benefit. I think if we look at the world water crisis, it's overwhelming and daunting. But it's not about going out there and trying to save the world. It's about going out there and doing your part. It is helping people and having fun along the way. And if we all do that, then it becomes a movement. The world water crisis is completely solvable. This one day is proof of that.
So yeah, I just wanted to share that video with you, an idea of hope, when we look at the global crisis, and we can really make a big difference. And as far as I'm concerned, you guys are all heroes, right? Because you're keeping us all healthy, providing that thing that we all take for granted. But I know, I've seen it firsthand, what water can really do to children. And when you see a mother that's child has been impaired with some water parasites and bacteria, and 3 days later after providing that clean water, you see that child is actually thriving, and the look in the mother's eyes, you realize how important water really is, and how blessed we are to have the amazing individuals like yourselves here doing some amazing work. So I won't ramble on. I'll just say, hey, thank you very much. Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for allowing me to be here. And so I appreciate that. And as moderator, I guess I get to ask a question or two. We still have time for that, Darsh? Yeah? Okay, so my first question is, hey, Ben, how are you so cool and so awesome? Well, I'm really glad you asked that. It just comes naturally. No, actually, I'll do like the other moderators did roughly, and there was any questions that we have from the crowd right away. Any questions of me or of Bruce, some of the amazing things he's doing? No? Well, while you're thinking of one, I do have one scripted. Stick to the script, right? And that is to you, Bruce. So earlier and throughout the day, and news stories obviously with droughts and everything, we hear a lot about water efficiency and water shortages and whatnot. And maybe you could speak to the crowd about if water was cut for your company, say 25%, 50%, 90%, what kind of effect would that have, not only as a company, and then also, even us as consumers? What would be the effects of that?
Yeah, and I think I referred to some of the things that we've put in place over the last several years that allow us to really see it better. So having in our back pocket a water source vulnerability assessment, which includes drought management as part of it, gives us a plan and allows us to look at, all right, if this scenario happens, what would be the next step? So we do build in steps that allow us to really assess. We've experienced some significant droughts in different parts of the world, so we share information across our geographies. Back in 2007, we had a very significant drought in the southeast, where the Atlanta's water supply, I think at one point we had 80% left. So what do? Because we're a business, we can look at saying, all right, how do we leverage our supply chain? Are there certain products that are higher water demand than others that we may say, maybe we curtail production or of that particular product? So there's a whole host of things we can do, largely because we have very many local production operations that allow us to flex a little bit. But we've actually looked at certain products during tough drought scenarios and actually pulled back on production of certain things, and it'll limit what we can do. The flip side is, I think there's a lot of headroom in many cases that those situations really force all of us to look at what can we do a lot better. And so every time we've been in one of these situations, we've applied very intense operational excellence thinking, lean thinking, bring in our engineering, and more often than not, we find ways to make the drops go farther and get a lot more efficient. And then I think I referred to earlier that the example right here in Orange County, we're actually looking with this Rainmaker project where we'll apply technology that's available today to take our processed wastewater, clean it back up to drinking water standards, and be able to use it for different cleaning and processes around the plant. So that significantly ups our ability to weather these kinds of situations. So does it have an impact? Yes. Does it create complications? Yes. And we have to really rely on the scale and size of our supply chain to be able to look for solutions external to that plant, as well as at times we'll say there's certain products we probably shouldn't run.